I wanted to thank you for taking time to speak with me today.
Thank you too.
I wanted to ask you, it's been a while since the last album. Were there any changes in the recording process this time around?
Yes, definitely. I don't know if you ever heard the first album, but
Yes.
it was recording wise, it was a rather shitty, very, very bad sound quality thing going on. And the thing about it was that, we had a zero budget. It was virtually zero. We had a demo sort of drum machine and just a small little pod like
Hmm.
guitar simulator going on. It was sounded awful, just a line six awful sound from the 90s, and it was just as plasticky as you can get it. But it was a zero budget album, and we were all students. We were trying to not starve. So
Sure.
so we made the album, but we made it as good as we could with the means that we had. But now, a decade passed, and we're all working a lot, and so we have more money but less time.
Right.
So what changed now is that we have all these fantastic new technologies with plugins and etc. So you can make stuff in your bedroom that sounds just amazing.
Yeah.
So that's I think the biggest change is, technology wise, and of course cash. Being a musician, it's more expensive than people think.
Oh, absolutely.
Just $10,000 it would go just like that. That's just a basic.
And the sad thing about the industry today is the rewards aren't as great as they used to be as well.
No, it's terrible. I think I play in a different band as well, and they're generating. We're talking streams of 100,000 plus, but they're generating what, like $100 or something. It's
Sure.
just ridiculous. So it's nothing to live by. You have to play the game in a different way if you want to start being a rock star and traveling the world. It's a whole different ball game.
Sure. And speaking of the album, I wanted to ask if you could speak on the track Hail Circle and uh and how that song came to you and talk to me about the song itself lyrically.
Well, it's a funny thing about that song because I wanted to write. We're using drop D tuning on all of our songs on the guitar, and I found that when I played the first fret with palm mutes, it just sounded a little bit better than open strings D.
Mm,
So I wanted to write a song that had sort of that that deep end from the first fret. That's the bass line of the song, the basic idea. So it's kind of flat in key in big parts of the song, and it sort of opens up a little bit more melody. But that's the general concept of the song, is that little first fret and those palm mutes. And we're two guys in the band. Stein is the other guy, and he exclusively writes the lyrics.
wow.
So we sort of have these, we're dividing, work between lyrics and music, and I'm the music guy,
Mhm.
and I don't sort of delve into the lyrics of what is this? Change that.
Right.
If I can sing it, I'm open for it. So we have these two different worlds that sort of combined. And that song itself is, it's all about cold and fire and the letter H in the runes, because
Hmm.
that is Hagal, which is the letter H. And so it's all about these elements, in the Viking Age, and
Sure.
it's all coming together with that music sort of sounding cold. What does that sound like? So we have these sort of musical elements that try to mimic the lyrics in a way. So that's the basis of that song. That's how it came to be.
And it's a great track. It's one of my favorites on the album. That and God's Silent Tale is
Yeah,
also another one of my favorite tracks on the album. And I
thank
wanted
you.
to ask you about that track as well.
Yeah, it's funny because both Monument, the first album from 2013, and Requiem from this year, they are similar. They're twins in a way. We have these. The first half are quick songs. They're
Mm.
fast, hard-hitting songs, and then the second part of the albums are longer, more experimental songs. And we on the first album we opened with translated to English, "Forgive us not, because we know what we do,"
Mm.
which is just a fantastic lyrical
Sure.
line. And we're thinking about, how do we compete with that on the new album? So Stein wrote these lyrics for Guds stumme tale, the first song, that he's going through in nomine et patri, et spiritus sancti, amen, and then go to hell, dra til helvete, which is just the perfect opening. We couldn't
Sure.
have lyrically.
Mhm.
It was just, yeah, that was just the best. So the both albums sort of, there's the first one is a sort of like a beginning, and the second album is a little bit more like an end. They're twin albums, and they're sort of similar in that way. And both songs are sort of like these two hard hitting first tracks.
And and speaking on the album, I wanted to ask you, were there any tracks that didn't make the cut for the album?
Oh yeah, tons of it, tons of it. I think I had I think a lot of artists have, these huge demo piles of tracks. You're talking maybe like 100 songs that just never surfaces anywhere.
Mm.
I know Prince, for instance, had an archive of, what was it, like a thousands of songs
Yeah,
just unreleased, never finished, or half finished, or even finished, just never released. And I think it's the same for us. I have these masses of songs that just never go anywhere, and you just sort of, you either leave them or you pick them up and renew them. But I think on this album in particular, we had, was it close to 40 or 50 songs, and we skipped out on most of them and ended up with 8.
that's
So that's the
amazing.
backstory of that. It's a lot of hard work. It doesn't come easy. I know it sounds, 8 tracks, and they sound great, perhaps, but it's a lot of bad songs that never go anywhere.
And it
Uh,
may be in a lot of cases, I think, like in Prince's case, he's writing material and he's like, oh man, this one doesn't fit with what
yeah,
I'm trying to convey, you know.
absolutely.
And so I'm gonna put it aside. When that feeling comes out, I'll bring it out and I'll put it on an album.
Yeah. And interesting, you asked about Hagals Sirkel. It's also a track on the first album. So we sort of repeated ourselves
Mhm.
in a certain way. And I think the reasoning behind that is that, we wanted to, for ourselves, just sort of hear the sort of
Sure.
the difference. But at the same time, it's like we love that song, and it sounded so good when we sort of just half jokingly repeated it, that we said, we have to release this song. We can't skip out on this great song. So we kept
Sure.
it. So 1 out of 7 songs is not a new song. So on the new album, we have 7 new songs.
Absolutely. And I wanted to ask you as well if you could speak on the album artwork and the artist that was involved with it.
Funny story is that, Blodsgard is a sort of, it's a name that reflects a little bit about my Norwegian, ancestry,
Hmm.
because there was a big battle. Basically a knife fight, and I think it was the 1700s, where these relatives of mine, these ancestors, they were they were in line to inherit a big farm because Norway back in the early years there was a lot of farms.
Sure.
Farmland was the big shit. If you had big farmland, you were a wealthy person. So one daughter was married off, and it turned into a big knife fight. And my relatives, luckily, was on the good side, but they lost. They were all they died. So that's the reasoning behind the name. It's a blood farm. It's that blood feud,
Hmm.
and it was a big sort of crime story in Norway back in the days. And Edvard Grieg, he made music from it, and Welhaven, he wrote poetry about it. It was a big thing. Um, and sort of one of the paintings that were made was hung in the National Gallery in Norway, in Oslo. So you can see sort of these guys attacking each other and
Wow.
fighting with the old buildings and all the costumes in the background. Uh, and I was walking around and looking at it, and I was going, hey, this is kind of cool. They have a lot of really good art here from the 1800s and the national romance. And I saw it was like a huge black sort of stone or a metal, like a painting almost. It was
Hmm.
flat, and it's called Helvete. And the artist is a guy named Vigeland, and he has this sculpture park in Oslo where uh, we shot the cover, or we had the cover painted for the first album from that park. So we just took a picture of it, and that turned into the new album art.
Wow.
And so it's all these threads that sort of just combined, and it was just perfect. The new album art is an image of the devil just sitting contemplating with all these souls just swirling around him. And it was just too good. We couldn't pass up on that
Sure.
opportunity.
Absolutely.
Black metal in bronze, it was just perfect.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask you if you could take me back in time and tell me how your musical career started.
I think I started making music when I was 13 years old, 12 or 13. There were these programs you can buy that they were called EJ, and it was basically just a computer setup where you had a timeline and you can put up samples and they would all fit together.
Oh, okay.
It was
Yeah.
dead easy. You couldn't go wrong. You can stack up 40,000 different things and it would sound perfect because it was just everything was in key. It was very simple. But I started doing that and I started making, all of our friends were doing the same thing. And I started making these insane tracks, like half-hour tracks of
Oh,
trance
wow.
music. And it was just the ambition was just so much higher than every other 12-year-old at the
Sure.
time. So I just sort of, I just kept at it. And I think it was 2005, I joined the army because it's mandatory in Norway. And I was just stuck there for a year, walking around just in the forest with rain every day or snow, just
Wow.
hating life and just going, shit. When I
Yeah.
get out of this, I'm starting my band. Just fuck it. I'm so
Yeah.
tired of just hurting.
Sure.
So I wanted to do something that was just a break from, being in prison, basically. So in 2006, I started the band, and it was just picking up a guitar, trying to learn it, and again, just very ambitious with very little knowledge, and it just sort of built on that. And 20 years later, and here we are, two albums down. It's not going fast, but it's a
It's
lot of fun.
amazing because, I sit here in the States and I look at pictures of your country and I go, wow, man, it's the most beautiful place I've ever seen. One of the most beautiful places. And to hear you talk about rain and snow and I wanted to get the fuck out of it really is a contrast to the pictures I have in my mind.
Yeah. But you can imagine, we were sitting this one day we were sitting we attacked a base pretty much. It was a rocket base for in the Soviet Union area.
Mm,
Um, and we attacked it. It's sort of like an exercise, and we had to hold it and keep it. So we were stuck outside, watching the perimeter, and we had all these, tripwires set up around the entire base. And I was sitting there with like a big ass machine gun with a belt fed and just looking out into nothing just for
yeah.
hours. And you had the northern lights above. It was starry skies, and it was 40 minus degrees. I
Oh,
don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but zero is freezing point and 40 is really, really hot. So in Celsius, 40 below is so cold that everything was just a block of ice.
sure.
My water bottle, it just in 20 minutes, it was a block of ice.
Wow.
And just the pain of, freezing your feet, your hands, your nose, your ears, just everything just turns red and hurts.
Sure.
Still does. So that was Norway is a very beautiful country, but it has a very extreme nature. So there's a lot of avalanches. It can get really cold, so you have to be very careful.
Sure.
But it is beautiful. It is very beautiful. And again, sort of, the music sort of, I think Norwegian black metal and Norwegian nature, it's very tightly knit.
Sure. And along your musical journey, I wanted to ask you, what do you feel has been the best advice that has been given to you along the way?
It's a good question. I always, when I meet, bigger artists or bigger bands, whatever, I try to ask, what's your advice? How's the journey been for you? And I've talked to, huge artists, metal bands, and, they're saying different things and they're giving good advice, but you have to do your own mistakes. The
Mhm.
first, you can't just you can't skip them because it's sort of like the process.
Sure.
Our first record label that signed us was an Italian label called The Oath, and it was just terrible. It was just, he had this Italian guy. He was a nice person, but he had this idea that black metal should be really underground and so underground that you just never tell anyone that you have an album for sale. It was just, it was, yeah, I get it. Underground is cool, and we are an
Yeah,
underground band, and I mean, I don't want to sell my records on freaking Starbucks,
sure.
but if I can choose it, but at the same time, we're in a PR setting. We're trying to tell people about our music. We want people to listen to our music.
Sure.
It's not a secret.
Right.
So yeah, it was just terrible, terrible. That was a big mistake. We should have just, went another way, but we did it, and it hurt us badly. But all in the name of experience.
Sure.
It's a
It
good
reminds
story.
me of the 80s. We went through this period of what would they call the tape passing days,
Yeah.
where you had this album is on cassette and you're like, hey man, check this band out, because the bands were getting on the radio, so that was the way we turned each other on to bands.
Yeah. I think it was like that in the early 90s with black metal as well. In Norway, just the very beginning, it was just, tape trading and word of mouth and people talking to each other, sending letters more than big companies and PR and whatever.
Sure,
And maybe it's back to that in a certain way now, except that, you don't have to send a tape, but you have to send a link.
sure.
but you still have to tell somebody about, I heard this band, you should check it out, like a quality stamp.
Right.
But music is so accessible now that, there's no end to the bands you can find, and there are
Absolutely.
millions of bands.
And some hit the mark and some don't. And it's a struggle, in finding and sifting through everything. And that's what I try to do personally, is to bring out independent artists that show me the talent and show me an upside. And I
Yeah,
think you have a huge upside, my friend.
thank you, thank you. I love it.
And in speaking of trading and all that, what is the best way to get a physical copy of this album and any merchandise that you have?
We haven't, as of today, printed a physical copy of the album, so it's all digital. But we have planned for a special kind of release, but it's going to be very different. And just to drop a little hint, it's going to be more in the realm of a book
Uh,
than a CD. So we're working on it, but we're trying to find. It's going to be very different. It's going to be something that is probably way too ambitious for a band like our size, but it's going to be a lot of fun making it.
sure.
And maybe we'll pop a CD inside the book. Who knows?
Right.
But it's a little bit in the pipeline. But
And
we have this Bandcamp account where we're selling shirts, and you can buy these patches. They're really cool. A Blodsgard
excellent.
patch. You can stick it on your forehead or up your nose. Yep.
And and I wanted to ask you, are there any ambitions of getting extra members and going out and playing live?
It would be fantastic to do it. And I have a lot of, ideas, dreams of, how we should play live. I play in another band that are also featuring on this new album called Vårløs. And it's mainly a live act.
Hmm.
And we played this festival in Norway called Midgardsblot for a lot of years, and I had the fortune of attending a live show in 2023, I think it was, which is just, playing live is fantastic,
Sure.
seeing the crowd and just, engaging with it. And it's something completely different when you're standing there with your instruments and, singing, and everybody's, they're hearing everything you're singing and saying, and they're sort of engaging with it. It is very, very unique. It's a very cool experience. Um, and I would love to send Blodsgard in that realm, but we're all working. I have a
Hmm.
small kid, and we just don't have the time.
Right.
So something has to change for us to become a live act, but maybe in the future, maybe.
And lastly, my friend, I wanted to ask you if you could give a message to your fans, what would that message be?
Ooh, I think I think just, if you like our music, just enjoy it, tell people about it. And I think first and foremost is like it's something personal. If you like our music, I think it's for you. I don't think you'd sort of half like it. It's not something, it's okay. I think the people that like our music really like it. I
Sure.
don't think anybody has this sort of, it's all right. I think they either, oh, it's not for me, or they love it. So if you love it, just, thank you and keep listening. And maybe, we'll continue make it for you few guys that enjoy it.
Well, I wanted to take a moment to thank you for creating an album I enjoyed from top to bottom.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to meet you, and I look forward to what lies ahead. Please feel free, keep in touch with me, my friend.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you so much. And thank you for reaching out. And, hopefully we can do this again.
Absolutely. I look forward to it. You take care, my friend. Enjoy the new year.
New, thank you too. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Cheers.